Welcome to Yogi's Garage. We're back with Project Pepper, my 2002 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet. If you've been following along, you know I've been digging into this car, trying to figure out how far the rabbit hole goes on the problems with this car. I need to get it sorted, but my number one priority has always been to get this car registered so I can pay my taxes and drive this car legally in the state of Texas. So, I have a small window of opportunity here because I'm still wrestling with getting the windshield in. We've got the windshield glass. As a matter of fact, the camera is sitting on the windshield right now on a folding table until the guy can come back on Wednesday to finish the installation. Long story short, I have a car with no windshield, but the glass is sitting here. He has to come back after the RTV is cured so that he can get it reinstalled. So I have an opportunity here to get some suspension done in this car. This car has had a major clunking sound coming out of the front right-hand corner of this car. And I'm pretty sure it has to do with the strut tower at the top, the actual bracket that connects to the frame of the car. It sounds like it's giving way. The rubber will oxidize and eventually crumble away. And like everything else in this car, I wouldn't be surprised. I've looked it over. I really can't pinpoint the exact spot where the noise is coming from. But since this car already has 101,000 miles on it, I seriously doubt the suspension has ever been touched. I've got a table full of parts, the majority of which are struts, shocks, suspension parts, tie rods. So, with that being said, we got a few things that we need to do first before we get the car in the air. So let's go ahead and take a look at what those are. Okay, now I got to get power back to the car because the trunk, the engine bay lid closed on me and I didn't leave the cable out to pop the latch. So now I got to put power to it, but I had to get everything reconnected in the car so that I don't throw a whole bunch of errors, even though I know I will on my ABS side. Okay, so all we're going to do here is let me get a socket for this, but we're going to just put power right back to it. There. Okay. Good. So now we got power. So what should happen now is we should hear a pop sound. Hey, I got my engine bay back open. I was beginning to wonder, like, how in the hell am I going to get my engine bay open? Imagine if I was trying to start the car with that in there. Remember when I had this crank and we were looking at the pistons? Yeah. And then we got to get the air filter in there and put oil back in it, right? So let's get busy. I'm going to put Aiden in charge and I'm going to be the camera guy. Cool? Cool. All right. All right, Aiden. It's all you, man. Let's get it in there. Aiden's putting in the air box in 2 pieces. You got it. You don't need my light. Let's see. It's reversed. Oh, yeah. There you go. Right. Make sure it's nice and, yeah, snug. Yeah, there's a screw that goes in there. We'll take care of that. Just get it all lined back up now. There you go. You got it, man. Easy peasy. All right, let's get the top. Okay, we're putting in the top of the air box now. Good. You want to make sure it's seated here. So you want to get that collar around, get the rubber collar around that throttle body all the way around. So you're going to just come around and don't go full throttle, just get it to where you feel it tightening. Then like Aiden, how old are you? 13? 13. Get to work on a Porsche at 13. How about that? Down. See more back there? Here's a light. Yep. I didn't have a choice when I was a kid. I had to work on my cars because they didn't work.
I mean, I had to buy my own car. I had $500, and the $500 today is like $1,500, which is nothing for a car. How are we doing? I had a Pontiac 2000. It was a piece of crap. I got it from my aunt and uncle who didn't take care of cars. And at the time, I didn't, I didn't care it was a car, man. I just wanted something with wheels so I could feel free. But I knew this, but I didn't understand what it meant back then. I understand what it means now, but apparently they drove it so hard, and the car was a lemon to begin with, that it was driving on 3 cylinders. One whole piston was dead. And it ran. I ran it all the way into the ground. I didn't have a window on one side because somebody broke into it. I didn't care. Okay, what do you think we still have to do left on this airbox? There's a couple of things. One of them I don't expect you to know, but one of them you should know we still got something to do.
I think we have to tighten.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that'll come right off.
All right, so here we are, Project Pepper, 2002, 101,000 miles. I'm gonna give you a sneak peek. I haven't been showing a lot of people the interior because I've yanked all of the carpet out and have exposed the rust issues. And of course, there's the instrument cluster. It may look a little bit different. You can see some stainless steel rings around the gauges themselves. That's a new add-on. I'm cleaning it up. I'm flip-flopping between the color, but that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is the suspension. So, looking at this car, the very first thing that we need to do before we get it up in the air is we have to figure out the unladen position of these cars. And that's one of the things that I've noticed that a lot of YouTubers seem to overlook or don't mention. And when I comment on it in the comment section of their videos about them not measuring the unladen position, it's always, oh yeah, I did that off camera. But it's my opinion that if you're gonna do a YouTube video on suspension, especially suspension, you need to be sure you cover all the bases when it comes to how to set it up and then how to torque it up and then drive it off. So it's very important that the first thing that you do is to figure out the unladen position of the car. Now, what does that mean? Well, the unladen position means the relaxed position the car is in when there's no weight in it and it's just sitting on the ground. What you want to measure is from the center of the hub to the edge of the fender and capture that measurement, because this will all make sense later, but it's important that when you torque the control arms and the sway bar and anything else suspension related, that you torque it down in the unladen position. So when you lift a car in the air, the wheels go down because of the weight of the car and the suspension and the hubs. That puts a minor strain on the bushings. So unladen means when the car is sitting on the ground, the bushings are not stressed, they're not twisted or torqued. And that's what you need when you're torquing up your suspension, is to put it in the unladen position. So I'm gonna measure the unladen measurement on the rear and the front. And then, so I'll know that when I finally get the suspension in and I'm ready to torque it down, I can slap a jack underneath the rotor, lift the rotor up to that height, and then I can torque it down all day long. So let's get started. Oh, and one last thing. In case you're wondering why my voice is so deep and manly, I got my second vaccination shot on Friday. And like what everyone is saying about the COVID vaccination is that the second one usually kicks you in the butt. And it did. Got a sore throat, felt ill. So that's why I have the very wide voice. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's go ahead and measure the front unladen position. And again, you're looking for the center of the curve, so a perpendicular line basically from the ground straight up to the edge of that. And so I'm going to measure it from the pony. And I'm looking at exactly 14.5 inches unladen. Let's check out the rear. 14 3/4. So 14.5 in the rear, in the front, 14 3/4 in the rear. All right, I got the car in the air. So I've been using this quick jack for a little while. Although quick jack does say that this jack set is rated or can fit a Porsche 911, I'm pretty sure they mean one of the newer ones that have a longer wheelbase. This one here wedges up against the tire. So when I take the tire off, I can't put it back on unless I put jack stands underneath, lower this thing out of the way, put the tire on, and then reset it up. So kind of a disappointment, but it is what it is when you have a garage like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the tires off. And what you'll see is, you'll notice the tire moved a little bit because of that jack. See? And there's absolutely no way I'd be able to get it back on there without either deflating the tires or the jack situation that I told you about. And this is what we're going to be putting in to the car. This is just one side. So starting at the top there, we're going to be replacing the shock, the inner and outer tie rods, stabilizer bar, top shock mount, inner and outer control arms. So we're going to get started with tearing some of this stuff out. I think I'll start with the control arms. All right, so scratch that. I'm going to start with removing the stabilizer bar from the strut tower itself. I need to counter hold it here. There's a nut on the inside of the stabilizer bar. And I'm good thing I'm doing this because the stabilizer bar really helps with the fine tuning of steering. And this thing is completely trashed. The actual rubber grommet part is completely shredded. All right, there we go. You can see it's already starting to go down. Okay, so the next thing I want to do here is get the outer tie rod ball joint disconnected from the wheel carrier here. I need to counter hold the center bolt with a Torx. In this case, it's a Torx T40 while I pop this thing loose. And wish me luck. There we go, not bad at all. Okay, good. All right, put the nut on there so that it doesn't come popping off. Okay. Yeah, that strut looks crooked. All right, so the next thing is to take this caliper off. So there's a bracket here on the back of the carrier. This part here, from the collar you see here to the actual shot, this is the carrier, which includes the rotor. You take the rotor off, it's just the actual hub itself with the bearing. So I got to disconnect this bracket so I can swing this caliper up and out of the way. There's a 10mm bolt holding it to the carrier. So I think I'm ready to take this caliper off. In fact, I know I am. And then I'm just gonna swing it up. And I already set up a zip tie hook here that I'm gonna hook it up to. There we go. And like that. Okay. I got the caliper out of the way. I have access to all of this now. So the next step is probably gonna be at the top. It should all line up together. Okay. And then I'll do a little number here as well. Not too bad. You see now that I've done that, it gives me full access to the carrier here, which as you can see, is pretty dirty. I need to remove this dog bone now here so that the carrier will fall completely and well, I mean, it won't fall because I have bolts holding it in place, but it's ready to come out at that point. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this carrier disconnected. There. All right. There you go. This is actually surprisingly light. I took them off a Ford Fusion and an Audi, and these things are really heavy. So pretty impressive.
But yeah, still needs a bath. I'm gonna go clean it up. Let's see, yeah. So you can see the boot is just completely shredded. The steering rack, inner tie rod, is actually in really good shape, but there's no slop whatsoever. Okay, so next thing is to remove the strut brace, which is here and here. There's 3, and I marked the bolts. So now I'm just gonna unscrew these. These are 13 millimeters. It should come right out, and then the strut underneath will drop, no problem. So I'm gonna set you up. All right. There we go. All right, one old strut taken out. All right, an 18 on this one. No? Okay. There you go. Okay. Bolt out. There we go. 16 pop off. There we go. Once you loosen it, it's important that you count the number of turns it took to get this thing off. I'm just up here marking it so I can count full revolutions. If you've been watching my video at any point, you know that I don't put things back in if they're, filthy. And I'm finally gonna get to use brake cleaner on a brake, sort of. Let's clean this up. I think I'm gonna get my respirator. I wanna breathe that stuff in.
I am your father.
Let's flip it this way so you can see what I'm doing. All right, I'm not sure what happened, but my camera overheated, so I had to stop recording. But you didn't miss much other than me scrubbing the crap out of this carrier. And it's, not perfect, but man, does it look so much better. I used a combination of brake cleaner, die grinder with a roll-lock, a 3M roll-lock that's about 1200 grit, I think, and some wire brushes to get into the cracks and crevices. But when you think about it, the rotor is gonna sit right here. So you're not really gonna see a whole lot of metal here, but you will when you're inspecting it and looking it over or just, taking it to a car show. So I wanted to get this thing cleaned up. And my GoPro's acting up here, so I don't know what's going on. So I'm gonna have to get this done quick. All right, these are the pieces that I took off the passenger side. And as you can see, here are the lower control arms still connected. Here's the stabilizer link. And if you look at this, you can just tell this is probably where the noise was coming from. And then here is the shock strut as well. The boot looks good, thank goodness, because I didn't buy a replacement boot. But this here is definitely the culprit when it comes to the squeaky noise that I'm hearing when I turn the wheel. Lots of pieces coming off. Here's what's going on the car. All right, so here's what we got that's going on the car. We've got a new Coney shock, strut tower brace. I'm going to be taking some of the hardware off of the old one. New lower control arms, outer tie rod, and stabilizer. And look, no jiggliness. That's really going to help. I got to take the spring and I got to transfer it over to the new strut. But I need to relieve the pressure on the top brace here because otherwise it'll just pop right off and hurt somebody. So in order to do that, you need something like a spring compressor, which is what this is here, to grab on to these springs and squish them down to relieve the pressure on this top bolt. Then I can come in with a counterhold Allen and a 21-inch wrench and just pop it right off. So the first thing I want to do is collapse this spring down enough to where I can get it out. All right, so now I got to counterhold that with an Allen. Got my ratchet here. Oh, damn. Woo. Okay, so I've got the first one done on the driver's side, but in doing so, I discovered a problem here with this, and I might be able to repack it. I've got plenty of grease and stuff. This collar fits right here, and it assists with the steering. When the wheel is turning, this gives it a little bit more play. This is basically a bearing. The bearing needs to be repacked. Here's the spring, compressed enough to get it off. And then these are components that are reusable. All right, now it's time to reassemble the front shock with all of its components. So I've got my little cheat sheet over here just to make sure that I get it all assembled correctly. What you want to do is you want to get all of the pieces installed and ready to go outside of the car, and then you can finish it up assembled into the car. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get the bellows installed, because the spring will fit over everything, and technically the spring should be the first thing you put in, but really, dealer's choice, I think. I've cleaned up the bellows. This is called a bellows here, and then this here, I had to go to the Porsche dealership and get it. And like everything over there is really, really expensive. But this is called a bump stop. And this is supposed to help you from bottoming out if you hit really big bumps. And interestingly enough, the car was missing all 4 bump stops. So take that for what it's worth. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to install the bellows like that, right? And then the bump stop will go like that and insert into the top of the bellows like that. All right. We're going to insert this tapered washer, and the tapered end goes facing down into the bellows, and it should fit flush right there on top. Then I would put the spring on next like that, and then you want to put on the bumper stop about where it's supposed to go. There is a stop point where it'll line up. And then from that point, you install the bearing. This is the bottom tension cup or whatever. And then the next step would be to install, make sure the threads go up, because that's going to mount into the car. And you can see that would be to install this and this after you put tension down on the spring to keep it compressed while you tighten it up. So my wife tells me that I have a problem. I have a problem with dirty stuff, and I like to clean all the time. I know that this area right here is going to be covered with a wheel well liner, but I also know that underneath it is also extremely filthy. I mean, you're looking at, 18, 19 years worth of grime and nastiness and, spider webs and stuff. So I'm just going to come in here with some soap and water, some Purple Power, and just, knock this out and get it cleaner, because this is really dirty. All right, I'd say that's pretty good. Good enough. Anyway, way better than it was before. Had to knock out all that grime and put a couple of catch containers down here so I didn't get my floors completely dirty. All right, when you're installing this strut, you'll see 2 arrows here. And these 2 arrows need to be facing the outer fenders. So this is the way it's going to go in, like that. And then I will screw them on from the top to get them attached, and then we'll torque them in to get them in place permanently.
There. And my Coney label. That's not me. Here. Secure it on this side, and then bring this here, and secure it right there. And then the last piece is this. And this piece here is your tie rod that controls the steering. What I need to do now is recall how many turns that I turned it when I screwed it on, or screwed it off, and I believe it was 24 turns to get it connected. So we'll do that. All right, I'm doing the strut mounts to the body, not the actual spring strut itself. And these are 27 foot-pounds, so no big deal here. I'm using my personal nail polish out of my own collection for this to label or identify all the torqued bolts. Really not necessary to paint the paint, but I'm gonna do it anyway. This here is a socket specifically designed for tightening the spring strut itself. You can see it's got a cutout here so that you can counterhold the bolt itself. That's your rod that goes into the shock. So you just hold it and then make sure your ratchet's in the right direction. You hold this until you hit the other side. And then I like to ratchet it over here, switch hands until you hit the other side. Okay, there. 59 foot-pounds. Here it comes. All right. Man, that makes life so much easier when you have the right tools, especially when you buy the right size, because I didn't buy the right size the first couple times. But now I have a 20 millimeter, 21 millimeter, and a 22 millimeter one of these for future cars, future projects. If you recall in my earlier video, I said it's important that when you torque the suspension down, you have to be in the unladen position, basically meaning the height from the center of the hub to the top of the edge of the fender has to be measured when the car is completely resting on its suspension. Well, I can't really do that when the wheels and everything else is off, but I did measure that, if you recall, and I got a 14.5-inch unladen position between the curve here and the center hub. So if that's the case, and this is approximately 14.5, you can see that I got to lift the suspension up probably a good 3 or 4 inches. That's what I'm going to do. I got to get it lifted up, and then we can torque it all down. So let's do it. There we go. The car is actually lifting a little bit as well. Be careful. All right, let's take a measurement. Really close. I'd say we got another 1.5 inches. I'm doing the control arms. I'm starting with the front diagonal one. This is 118 foot-pounds. I'm gonna slide my body under here and get a proper angle. This is why I need a 2-post lift. Woo! That's a big old clunk clunk, isn't it? Hi. All right, so you're gonna run into this problem as a home mechanic because this suspension requires over 100 foot-pounds in some areas to tighten it down, and this is a torque wrench that you use to get that kind of torquing, but unfortunately you can tell how tall it is, and I've got my quick jacks all the way at their max level,
And even if I cheated and put the cheater blocks on it to get it even higher, it's not gonna give me the height that I need. So I require 86 foot-pounds on that wishbone. Oh, great. 89 foot-pounds on that wishbone. And I have a torque wrench here that can get me to 80. And then I'll have to guesstimate the extra 10 pounds because I cannot get this in there. I may try a crow's foot to see if I can get it in there. But this is my first attempt here. Okay, now that's 80. Now I have to guesstimate 10 more foot-pounds. 9 more foot-pounds. That was click, click. All right, use my nail polish right where you can see it. All right. I am torquing the cross member here to the wishbone. It's 118 foot-pounds, and I'm gonna come at it from the bottom because you need a big torque wrench to do 118, and then I'm gonna counter hold it on the top. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Torqued, 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 torqued. Linkage. That was a lot of work. And I just finished the front suspension. I still have the rear left to go. Unfortunately, this is the end of the video. I had about almost 4 hours of raw footage after I was all said and done. And I've got the front and the rear suspension compiled into a 1 hour video. And unfortunately, no one on YouTube is gonna watch a 1 hour long video on suspension, so I had to split it in two. So I really appreciate you watching the first video in a 2-part series on Pepper Porsche here, getting her suspension. But I'm gonna tell you, I've already finished the suspension, which is why she's on the ground. It's worth the wait. Wait till you see how the car performs once I get it out on the road. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. There's a new YouTube algorithm, believe it or not, that measures the thumbs up more than the subscribers. So if you're not gonna subscribe, leave me a thumbs up. And if you don't want to, leave me a thumbs down. But hey, at least tell me why. So for my loyal viewers, thank you for watching. For new viewers, welcome. I got a whole lot more in store for Project Pepper over here, my 2002 Porsche 911. Please stick around, check it out. I've got a whole engine rebuild series that's getting ready to start up once I get this car inspected, which I'm almost there. That's a future video. So thanks for watching Yogi's Garage. We'll see you in part 2.
Yo, microphone check, make it a microphone check. Give it a microphone, I make it a microphone dead. Don't step to me, newbie, I could truly be moody. I could have played the French in the movies. I've been a part-time shadow cat, part-time, that is